Hi, and welcome to the Endeavor, Pennsylvania Working Group. This video will give you a quick overview of how this working group, which is run by the private sector, works with state agencies to resolve operational problems during disasters. It develops a year-round planning framework that allows us to build more resilient businesses and communities in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. First of all, let me introduce you to the leadership. Carmela Hinderrocker and Pat Scholl are the co-chairs for this working group. The group was established in May of 2018. Carmela has a background in the food sector as Senior Director of Business Continuity and Customer Support. Pat Scholl comes from the property management sector as Director of Safety, Security, and Risk Assessment. And you'll get a chance to meet and hear them online as well as at future events. So what formed Endeavor? Well, first, the state wanted to have a way to work with the private sector operationally that could survive elections and turnover both in government and industry. The directors at PEMA really wanted to see something stable. Many programs start at the state level, but they struggle because many times they're operated by grant funds and those funds run out and the group goes away. Things that are government driven, government funded and government sponsored sometimes have a hard time transitioning with elections. So the current leadership within PEMA wanted to establish a framework that the private sector ran, could operate, and sustain. So they replicated a model built by the private sector under the All Hazards Consortium, the Multi-State Fleet Response Working Group. This group was organized under the consortium, which is a 501c3, and really allowed them to share information and do planning with states in an operational way. This fantastic model. So Endeavor copies that model. Secondly, they wanted to stay operationally focused. They didn't want to get into regulatory issues. They didn't want to get into PR and legal and all this stuff. They just wanted to fix some problems. Both private sector and public sector wanted to do things quicker and faster and more effectively, and they could replicate a process that was already proven. Which is the third point. They didn't want to reinvent the wheel, so they modeled this after the Multi-State Fleet Response Working Group. This is a private sector working group that's been in place really since 2013 after Hurricane Sandy and has produced over 100 operational solutions, but together with states. It's a fantastic model, and Endeavor is copying that on a statewide level in the state of Pennsylvania. So what was the work plan? What does this group do? Well, the first thing they do is form a governance structure. It lays out who the stakeholders are, who the chairs, how you become a member, how you get kicked out, a logo, a charter, a website. They did this in the first 2 weeks of its formation very quickly. They created a work plan for 12 months that basically they wanted to set up very quick results. They wanted to identify initial use cases they could work on. They picked 3. A couple of were transportation related. Another one was a policy related issue. They formed use case committees and started planning immediately via conference calls. And they planned their first workshop. They do a couple workshops a year. And they conduct periodic use case calls and work on these use cases. Why? The use cases define the problem, define the impacts of the problem, who the people need to be at the table, what's the data and information needed to be shared or produced, what's the sensitivity level of that data, and then what are the solutions that are out there, meaning could be a policy, a process, a tool, so whatever. And it leverages the SICE, the Sensitive Information Sharing Environment, which is a very large organization, 45,000 some stakeholders nationwide, sponsored by the All Hazards Consortium and its partners at DHS, FEMA, and other states, as well as the private sector, electric, food, fuel, telecom, and so forth. So the Endeavor work group had its first kickoff meeting in May of 2018. Pictures here will show you about the meeting they had at the governor's mansion. It was quite a crew that showed up there, and from that first meeting, they all agreed. The private sector said, yeah, we like this model. They elected a chair and co-chair right at the meeting. They defined their first set of issues they needed to resolve. One was a transportation policy. One was a common operating picture for transportation data in Pennsylvania. And a third one was the use of empty trailers, right? In Pennsylvania, empty trailers are not allowed to drive during certain conditions, which severely impacts supply chain delivery. So they wanted to address that policy together, which they did. Fantastic accomplishment there. Results. Well, they had the kickoff meeting, formed steering committees. They held the first and second workshop. They responded to several storms and incidents together. All this happened within 6 or 8 months. It was pretty amazing. They had a universal federated agreement on using the PA 511 website as a standard operating picture for transportation related. As I mentioned, they developed several use cases that they worked on immediately and a use case parking lot as well. So now they're looking at kind of their long-term, what are their long-term objectives and sustainment and so forth, and working with the SICE and other private sector organizations, not just in Pennsylvania, but around the country. So the next steps, if you'd like to be part of this, there's no cost. You register right at this website. You just have to click on I've read the agreement. If you click on the link, you can read the agreement. It's basically the Pennsylvania Emergency Management Agency's agreement for the rules and conduct, if you will, for the Pennsylvania BEOC. Once you go through that process, you'll land on a website that looks like this. It provides you links to all kinds of information that is validated from authoritative sources to cover power outages, live updates on Pennsylvania's emergency management operation dashboard, road conditions, airport closures, state operations briefs, several new tools for COVID-19, feedback, operational survey, all kinds of information will be here once you join. So we invite you to register today and join the Endeavor Working Group, and we'll see you on the other side.